Hey folks, welcome to Moonshift Audio. In this video, I'm going to show you how to create the massive lead sound from Stayinit by Fred Again and Overmono. It sounds like this. I love making sounds like this. On the surface, they sound pretty simple, but as you start to dig into it, you hear more and more little details that really add up to help add extra character and depth. If you want to download this preset, I'll put a link in the description. If you're interested in learning how to make a whole track in the style of Overmono, then make sure you check out next week's video where I'll be taking you through an entire production from start to finish. For now, let's jump into Serum. Okay, so here we go. As usual, we've got an initial instance of Serum. Just the standard saw wave there, and we're going to jump in straight away and do the oscillators. So oscillator A, I just used a sine wave for this, which is in the basic shapes, and although that doesn't really have a lot of bite or harmonics, it does get roughed up quite a lot, so we'll get the edge that we want a bit later on. I'm going to turn the unison up to 11 and just pull the detune down quite a lot, so we don't want that real kind of like phasing, that beating. Just want some thickness. Turn the random phase off. The level there is fine. To add a little bit of bite to this, I'm going to pull up a square wave again from the basic shapes, and if we get the wavetable position up to 4, there's your square wave. We don't want any unison on this, so we'll leave that at 1. The detune is therefore irrelevant. We'll pull the randomness down, and I am just going to pull the level of this back to about a third because we don't want it too harmonically rich at this stage. We're going to add a little bit of noise to this patch just to keep it nice and rough, and there's quite a nice Juno 106 noise here. That's perhaps a little bit more than it needs. Just in the background there. Maybe pitch it up a bit. Yeah, I'm liking that. The amp envelope isn't super important for this sound, and actually I found that I was able to get what I wanted just by leaving it as it was. But we do definitely need to look at the voicing. So to get these kind of lurches between notes, we definitely want this to be a mono synth, so I'll turn on the mono, and we're going to want a reasonable amount of portamento time, like let's try 237. Oh, we want that to always happen. Maybe not quite as much as that. So we can just have a very quick look at the notes that I programmed for this. We'll have another look at this in a minute. It's getting there, and I think that portamento sounds about right. With our basic oscillators in place, I'm going to put a filter in here because I want to get just a little bit of a chirp at the start of each note. So I'm going to pull up just the 12 dB an octave filter is fine. Make sure it's working on both oscillators, and the noise cut off 1200 hertz, something like that would be fine, and quite a lot of resonance, like 60%. That's helping cut off some of those slightly nasty high frequencies as well. We can use an envelope to modulate this. So I'm going to pull the attack right down, sustain right down, and the decay to about 100 milliseconds. Now if we drag that onto the cutoff here, about 25. Just getting a little bit of a chirp there. And what I actually want to do is also apply this to the resonance, because I don't want a really resonant sound when it's held, but it's nice to have an extra bit of resonance. At the start of the note. There's a few more bits and pieces that we want to do here, but the next thing I'm going to do is just to get the character of the sound, jump into the effects. So first thing I'm going to look at, distortion. Let's try asymmetrical for this. Drive all the way up, mix all the way up. Don't need to worry about the EQ. Okay, instant attitude there. We'll put some chorus in, maybe speed it up a little bit. That should cover it. And now I'm going to drop in another filter. Reason being, we're getting a lot of quite harsh frequencies and it's just a bit brighter than I'd like. So by filtering it off after the distortion in the chorus, we get a bit more control over what's coming out the end of our patch. And that's going to become even more important when we start to get a bit more fruity with some modulation later on. 18 dBs an octave would be nice for this, I think. And what we're trying to do is, it's going to be pretty open. We just want to chop off the real top end. So that's with. Just tames it a bit, but we can also use this to add some extra distortion. So I'm going to put some drive in and some fatness. It's getting heavier. Next up, we're going to put in some delay. Don't need loads, so like probably about 20% on the feedback. And we'll pull the mix back to 20% as well. Throw some reverb on top of that. Plate would be good. Pull the size back a bit. Maybe make it a bit wider. And let's play that with the notes again. Let's pull this back a bit. Okay, it's starting to get there, but there's definitely a few more things that we need to do to get this absolutely right. So, I think the tone isn't quite there, so I'm going to get an EQ out and I'm just going to put in a sort of presence bump. So we can go about 10 dBs, make sure this is on bell, and let's look at about 3.5, 3K, something like that. And I just want to pull this so it's not super sharp and resonant. That's a bit better. Just got that kind of tonal balance that we're looking for. Now this patch has got some quite nice stuff going on with the pitch of the oscillators, and the way they've done that is enveloping the coarse pitch. So I'm going to hop into the matrix and you can see I've set up a thing here to affect the coarse pitch of oscillator A and oscillator B, and what we want that to be is envelope 2, that quite nice snappy envelope that we built just to affect the filter and give you that chirp at the start of the sound. We're going to use that same shaper to add even more interest to the start of the sound. And what we want is to just affect these a tiny bit. Like I'm going to try just -2. Can you hear that little wah, wah? The pitch is just raising up a tiny bit at the start of each note. See how that sounds now. Just adding a little bit more interest. But what I've noticed in the original track is that this little pitch envelope isn't always there. So rather than trying to automate this, what I figured I would do is just make this velocity dependent. So now if I play softly, we just hear the note start normally. And if I play with a bit more velocity, you hear that little pitch drift. So if we look in my notes that I've programmed, you can see I've got the occasional one where we're doing those quite quick rolls like this. Where we don't have that pitch drift, which just helps to add a bit of variety there. While we're in here, let's have a look at just the way that I've programmed these. You can see that everything is slightly off grid. I've manually rearranged these notes slightly. So some are slightly ahead, some are slightly behind. And I've done this really quick. Run. The main note is an A sharp, but I've just started a semitone below to give you that slide. So here we've got everything. We've got a high velocity note, which does carry that pitch shift. 2 low velocities that come in clean, followed immediately by one a semitone down, lurching up into the main note. So you get this nice. think I'm tempted just to lower the filter, the master filter, just a little bit. The last thing I'm going to look at here is, because they've got all sorts of crazy modulation going on with this, and one fairly simple way to rough this up is going to be to put a very fast LFO on this filter that we're using for the chirp. So we're going to turn off the BPM sync and put the rate up to 100 Hertz, which is well into the audible range. And we're going to drag this onto the filter cutoff. We don't need a lot, just like -6 or something. And this is going to probably sound a bit mad now. So that's without. Yeah, really gnarly. And in the matrix again, I'm going to make this aux source macro 1. So this is something that we can now control. With that macro, but we can have a bit more fun with that. So I'm also going to use the same macro to change the rate of this LFO just a little bit, just like -5 or something. So now when we increase the amount, we also just ever so slightly reduce the rate of that LFO. We can perhaps pull it down. Let's try -8. Nice. And then to compensate for a little bit of the harshness that that's bringing in, we could even drag this same macro just to pull a little bit out of that master filter. So if we perhaps do -6, as you start to bring in that sort of dirty frequency modulated filter noise, you're just tempering it slightly by pulling back on the filter there. And there you have it. If you want to see how I made the backing track for this project, then make sure you check in next week, where I'll be uploading a full start to finish production tutorial for a track in the style of Overmono. But for now, please do like and subscribe for more tips, tricks, resources and downloads from me at Moonshift Audio. Till next time.